Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 24th of October 2018 and our special guest today is a unique lady from Norway who's become like a rebel in her own way. If it is impossible to renounce the entire system and no longer be part of state and government, she has done the impossible. Ingunn Sigurdsdatter. Ingunn Sigurdsdatter, welcome back to Age of Truth TV. It's wonderful to see you again.
Thank you, Lucas. Wonderful seeing you also.
It's been 4 years since the first time we met. That was at the Open Mind Conference in Copenhagen, Denmark. You were one of the speakers and you were talking about this very controversial path that you'd just been going on and what was happening in your life at that time. Because what happened was that you had given up your citizenship, your social security number, your passport, and every single thing in your life that had to do with the state. That would be the Norwegian state. You said no to have anything to do with the Norwegian state, and you renounced being part of the system altogether, which you, in so many words, called a corporate enslavement of human beings and the population. So Ingunn, my first question to you is, how dare you?
This for me was most of all a quest for the truth about who I am. It's more about spiritual journey and more about questions like, what are we doing here on earth? Why have we come? And these questions are deep questions and the school never responds to them. And then during my normal life, my conventional life, I really never posed those questions. So I was living an absolutely normal life like everybody else. Completely conventional life with normal job, with kids, going to job every day. But then I experienced some what I would call an awakening. And that awakening happened on two levels. One was on a spiritual level, that I could begin to feel new questions arising in my mind. And I could also feel certain powers, like healing powers, coming to the surface that I had when I was a child, and then they resurfaced again. So it was never about winning a battle with the state. And when you say that you are a rebel, the things I did might have seemed rebellious at the time, but actually it is more about bringing oneself into harmony with what we really are. So for me, it was more about finding harmony and peace, being at peace with myself, knowing who I am, than rebelling. But the assumptions that we build our lives upon were faulty. So to me, what I realized is that so many things of what we've been told are really lies. And when we are born, from our first day, we are already like branded like cattle, saying that, well, the premise for your life is that you are now a guarantor for the debt that the state has acquired even before you were born. So now you are born into a system that from birth on has kind of enslaved you. All of my life I had been living accepting these premises, that basing my life upon them, giving away all of my energy, living my life in accordance with this foundation for my life that is also the foundation for the lives of everybody else.
And you were a school teacher, right?
Yes, I was. And then when you begin to question some of the premises and you see that they are crumbling, like some of the concepts that we so easily toss around, like democracy, when you go to the core and see, do we really have democracy? And why is it then that the state always acts contrary to what the people want? Why do they sell away our resources, natural resources? Why do they do this? Why do they enter into nefarious agreements? So many questions arose. Then it took a long time for me to reach a conclusion. It was a long process. It wasn't like a rebellious act, like waking up and thinking, I'll turn my passport in. It was a path that took some time. And then one day I woke up. I actually did with what felt like an answer. Like, the answer is to dissociate from what we would call the system, because I cannot identify with it and I can't see how they can make claims on my life. So I gave my passport in, and some years have passed now. And I've learned so much, and I realized that you can actually cut with the state.
But can you really? I mean, what you did, saying no to the organized community and the state and the system, renouncing the whole thing, can that actually really be done? And how?
It can, because it seems to me that the whole system recognizes the premise of free will. And to me, as I see it, this is the premise for our lives. We are born with free will. Not many people actually dispute that. And my experience or my conclusion is that this also seems to be built into the system as a premise. So when I turned in everything, the state actually left me in peace. And I used to get letters from the tax authorities, from this, from that, and I didn't get any letters anymore.
Really? Before we continue this conversation here in 2018 and hear more about your details of your life today and how everything went since then, what has happened since 2014, let's see the interview that we did at the Open Mind Conference in September 2014 when you were lecturing here in Copenhagen. And then we'll return and get into the details of what has happened since, which is quite a lot. Welcome to Denmark.
Thank you.
Is that the first time you're in Denmark?
Absolutely not. And I think we also need to lose the notion of us being different from each other or separated by those borders, because at least in Scandinavia we have very strong feeling of being one people. So the Danes are our brothers and sisters, and my take on it is that the Scandinavian societies or welfare states, so-called welfare states, have been subjected to the same kind of social engineering. So I think it is very important for us to stand together, actually, to be able to face the challenges we have had.
You also mentioned in your lecture something called unum sanctum. What is that?
We have been conditioned so well, so we think that it is natural and normal that someone should claim jurisdiction over us. And my take on it is that, and we know that we have been enslaved as people. We are, through the securitization of our birth certificates. Our birth certificate is a value, it's worth money. So there has been a plan all the time by the oligarchical forces actually ruling the earth to be able to enslave us. So they need tools to do that. And one tool is the legal world, its laws. And another tool is money. So the Pope and the Vatican has always been the perfect tool at the hands of those trying to gain control of our productive energy. So to be able to establish a jurisdiction, when we read the history of the Vatican, we see that much of it is about bulls and laws to try to establish, to implement into society that kind of control. So unam sanctum, I think it's from 1302 or something. I'm not sure about the year though. Unam sanctam means that everything is holy. Everything's holy. And that has to do with the Pope's claim. he's in God's place on earth. He is actually administrating all of God's creation because he has the keys. He was given the keys to heaven by Peter.
So representative of God.
He is representing God on earth, yes. So he is in charge of, he is the administrator of everything that belongs to God, the creation. So, unam sanctam is just one tool to be able to administer everything that belongs to God. So the claim is that everything belongs to God, so the Pope is on top in the jurisdictional hierarchy. And then you have organizations and what we think of as nations, but that are just administrative units really within the system of global control. They all bow to the jurisdiction that comes above. So we think that we are governed by national laws and the constitution and the laws coming from our politicians. These are just laws within a much bigger matrix. It's the lowest step on the ladder, really. And these laws are set aside when a higher jurisdiction comes into play. So the guy on top with the highest claim can always claim to own everything. So far it has been the Pope actually. He's had the highest claim because he has.
So do you actually think that the Pope has that much power?
Well, he has because these are registered corporations. The Holy See that administers the maritime law is a registered corporation. And when we go to our countries, we go to the courts. Inside the courtroom, we see that we are never judged by the Constitution or by the national laws. When we come into court, we come as a legal fiction representing a paper. If we have an issue and go to court, we never come as living people, as living women or men. We come as a legal fiction, and the name of the legal fiction is our names. So our names are registered names and they are copyrighted names, and they represent the corporate fiction that we are through the person and the number given to us.
On the birth certificate.
Yeah, the personnummer, personal number, or the identification number. So our birth certificate is something called the bill of lading. And to be able to deal with bills of lading, because these documents pertain to the area of international commerce, you cannot use national jurisdiction or national laws. You need to go to another law, to international law that regulates transactions, because the courts are about commerce and transactions, that is all. So, to be able to make a ruling, they have to go to maritime law, and in our countries it has different name. It's called Sjöloven in Norway, but you need to go to the actual treaties, like the unique trial that they signed in 24, and the Visby and the Hamburg rules. So then you see that they all deal with bills of lading. And that means that we are definitely governed by the maritime law that sprung forth from the Vatican and is placed under the Roman Curia, or at the administration of the Roman Curia, which is the Pope's administration.
So the Pope and the Vatican is very powerful still, you say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a religious thing. It's not just, no.
Because we think that this is fiction. That's just a story. It's something from the last century. But within law is very easy to understand, actually, because we think that law, that's very complex. That's a whole industry, really. It's business. So when you try to gain power over someone, you invent new laws. So that means this whole issue becomes very dizzy, makes us dizzy to think about it. It's very murky landscape, really. Mm-hmm. You just have to understand that the one with the highest claim wins. It's a competition. So if someone has a higher claim than you and can claim to have a better source of law, he will win always. So the Pope claims that he's just beneath God and he will always win. And history has shown that he has won, because there has been kings and rulers trying to pose this, and they have always lost. And when the Protestant Church apparently won in the Nordic countries, the Vatican has used different methods to gain terrain. They have used the Jesuits and they used the Freemasons. And when we see our king, he could never be king if he wasn't beneath the Vatican's jurisdiction. So our king is member of the Freemasonic lodges that get the orders. That's orders directly from the Vatican. These are orders.
Really?
Yeah.
But how about other religions and other, how should we say, representatives of their gods, like the Muslim faith or Hinduism, Buddhism or whatever?
Actually, the slave laws that we are under now are very old laws. They are Sumerian laws, Babylonian laws. So I'd recommend to everyone that they search up Kate of Gaia on the internet and read the works of Kate of Gaia, because there are some excellent works in this field to explain how the matrix is put together. And really, the Hammurabian slave laws, or the slave laws that used to be before, they are the same now, but in a globalized version.
Really?
Sure.
So you're claiming that we're all still slaves?
And the tools being used to enslave us has been different kinds of religions.
To be religious is actually to be a slave, you say?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Lots of angry people now. My take on it is that the reason for me becoming sovereign, that's just the word. It means independent, really. Words are spells, really. What I needed to do was take my own inner authority back, because religion wants us to place authority outside of ourselves. And within our energy field, we should be autonomous. There shouldn't be anything else. And the state and religion hacks into our energy fields and steals from this energy. So when you have an authority that isn't you, who are you then? Isn't the universal force, source, consciousness running through everybody and everything equally?
But a lot of people would probably claim that their religion and their take on God, in whatever form that comes, that would be the same, wouldn't it? To be that they're spiritual and that's the spiritual source.
I think it's very, very important never to fall for these tricks of fragmentation, because it's all divide and conquer. And divide and conquer is the main tool used by the social engineers who have created our societies according to the templates that we see. My take on it is that I can speak for myself. What I do in my life is I say no to the things that cause me to harm others and to offend others and to participate and give my consent to actions against other people that create suffering and pain. So that's really my only stand. It is saying no. I'm not going to be part of something that creates conflict, war, terror.
But how are you able to do that completely in your life? I mean, we always face some kind of complication and confrontation and stuff like that, don't we?
The agents of divide and conquer are definitely the state and the structure, the system of control. So, as I said, the important thing is to take stand against those systems of control, trying to lead us into destructive behavior and trying to take our humanity away. because when you become conscious of who you are, you also realize immediately that everybody else is you, and that there isn't any divide or difference between you.
And that people are a reflection of yourself?
Yeah, I'd say
in
so.
a way. You talk about a ruling elite, and you mention black nobility in your lectures. Please explain to us what is the black nobility and who is the ruling elite?
Yeah. I recommend John Coleman. I think he's a very good source. Or I enjoyed his findings when he speaks about the Committee of 300, among others. And he explains how the Venetians, or the Phoenicians, right, which is the same, came to a class or families of merchants came to Venice and sided with the Pope, or created an empire with the Caesars, that later was the Caesars of Rome. Kind of the concept became the Vatican. And when the maritime law jurisdiction was created, it was created in cooperation between these two forces, the Venetians and the Pope. And they came together in Piazza San Marco in Venezia, and the Pope threw a coin into the sea, and he said, I now wed thee. I and the Venetians now wed thee, the sea. So the private corporation called the Holy See is actually cooperation between the Venetians and the Pope. They were given feudal enclaves in all of Europe, and then they changed their names. So our king is descended from Saxe-Gotha-Coburg, as well as the Danish queen, I think. And same family as the Windsors. The Windsors in Britain used to be Saxe-Gotha. So it is one ruling family, and we see that one family rules Europe, and they claim to have been elected by the people.
Well, the royals have not been elected by the people.
That's what they say in our country.
Really?
Yeah.
That the Norwegian king is elected by the people?
That's what he claims. And
he was born into the family.
Of course. Of course. It's bloodline. And they control the resources of the world. The banking families, or the bankers and the royal families, have come together actually for joint ventures to buy up and control the petroleum, the diamonds, the gold, the natural resources of all of the world. So you have many examples. One example of joint venture between the banks and the royal families is something called the green quantum in Venezuela, where they have the crude oil coming from all over the world to refine them in their refineries. A few families related often to the royals. And this is one group of people, really. It's an elite. There aren't so many. What makes it complicated is that, as I see it, they have just taken on a role within our history, and they are wearing one kind of mask, and we are wearing another. And as I see it, the time has come to remove those masks and become creator source, because the time has really come to relinquish this old circus that we've been part of.
So you actually think that the royals play a greater role than people think, because most people don't think that the royals have any influence in finances or in business or in politics.
We see in Norway that we have a few so-called noble families. They aren't really nobility, but you know, in my home city, Løvenskiold, he has huge amounts of terrain. And how did he get that land? He got it from the Pope because he was holding space for the Vatican to implement their jurisdiction, and that's the same with kings and others. They have the protection, and then they hold space for that jurisdiction to be implemented. And we know that if we think of the pyramid, the lower level that we think of as the government and the people in government and all of that, those are that's a circus put up for us so we can focus our attention on that.
So you don't think that the people elected the government, the people that are put in position of power?
When we realize that our birth certificate is a security, we realize that someone has bought us. Who has bought us? These are the banks. And how did that happen? It happened when the global economies collapsed around 29, and there had been preparations a long time in advance to collapse those economies. So the states were forced into signing agreements, binding agreements with the banks, taking up loans. And we, the people, were pledged. We are the collateral, right? Yeah. The furniture of the house, kind of. The resources, the human resources that were pledged.
You refer to slaves before.
Absolutely, because according to all definition, that is slavery. When someone has legal ownership of you, because you're a slave. So that little thing in itself makes the whole paradigm collapse. They can never claim authority over you and at the same time selling you, obviously, right? So
it's not just to keep track of people and to have some kind of order.
You're a value. Your value. So each time you sign onto something, it means that someone can capitalize on the value you represent. So when you go to the bank and you say, "Can I have a loan from you?" They say, "Yeah, sure." And then they extract that value from your birth certificate, which is the security that they use to be able to open up the credit account that they establish in your name. And your bill of lading, your birth certificate, allow them to create money out of thin air. So the banks don't give you anything whatsoever. You don't get even 1 kroner at all. To keep us in check, or to keep us still working and rendering the value of the birth certificate, there had to be a system. So if we were slaves with chains, we wouldn't work, we'd be lazy. Now we think we are free, and we have beautiful cars and houses, and we have gadgets, and we can travel all over the world, so we are happy. In reality, that's a bubble. It's a pink bubble that we live our lives within, and it isn't reality. It isn't true.
But for some people who make a lot of money, maybe that's sufficient. It's good for them, and they enjoy that kind of life because they can get what they want, or at least some. And some people don't crave too much, do they?
You know, that's one of the tricks in the book, because when you have some people, when they comply with the ruling elite or the requirements of society, they are rewarded. They will never have problems. They'll have everything they want. But if you have someone who steps out of line and say something else and stop complying, then the privileges are taken back, and you will feel the iron fist coming down on you. So.
But you yourself stopped complying.
Yeah.
And you actually worked as a university teacher in Norway. And what made you have this radical change suddenly? Your whole life changed, and you turned everything upside down and said, no, you would not want to be part of the system anymore. You don't want to be part of what we know as the financial, political system. Please really explain to us what happened and how your life is now compared to before.
I was always a rebel since I was a child, really. But I was also conventional, so I didn't have ambitions beyond being a good mom and living happily with my family. But I always knew that something was wrong, but I wasn't sure what was wrong. I saw a couple of movies that woke me up, and I realized what's going on. The swine flu came to Norway, and we were some people who realized that, oh my God, this is a scam, they are going to hurt people now. So we have to warn, we have to tell the people what's going on, because the government or the state is promoting the agenda of the corporate forces, and they aren't telling the people about the risks, so they on purpose inflict danger and suffering on the people. So he said those things on national TV, and after that I felt the retaliation coming down on me.
You said it on national TV.
Yeah, we were a few people actually who were invited into the national debate.
You said that the swine flu vaccine was bad for
Absolutely,
people.
absolutely. And there was a lot of action going on. So I really think that we achieved that quite a number of people were thinking twice before taking the vaccine. But then it alerted the government to us, and they were thinking, oh, we've got some people there, we have to control them. So they began using their methods of control, and one of them is demonization, and the way that they speak about you in the media, trying to make you seem crazy, and how they tear your reputation down, how they use bloggers, they use organizations to try to herd you into a category where people will think, oh, okay, we don't have to listen to that person. When we came with the swine flu, that's when it began. I was feeling that I need to take more radical stand, because I'm now, they're trying to crush me. And I felt so sorry and devastated and broken, because I was a single mom at the time. So I thought, okay, I've got two choices. Either I fall and bow my head for the rest of my life, and I pay and I feel like a victim, or I take my powers back and try to understand what's really going on here. So that has been my path since then, trying to understand what's going on.
And now you've actually turned in your passport, right? You turned that in, so you don't have a passport.
No.
So how did you travel to Denmark?
We don't need passports within Scandinavia, really. And also not within the Schengen area at all. But all of these fake borders and obstacles that are put up for us, they're part of that matrix. And many people, they tell me that, oh, but we're so afraid of losing our liberty and our privileges, so we will participate in the system because we hate the thought of not being able to travel. So as I see it, when you receive the privileges from the system, you also are responsible for the suffering created, because you condone it. Unfortunately, you have to have your feet on the ground and know what you're doing. And I had to, I'm realistic. I know exactly what could happen and what not. So I thought that I had to do this in the open, where everyone can see me. Because if I'm under the radar, that's more dangerous, really. So I went with the newspaper to the mayor. So this picture in the newspaper, she's turning in the passport, and the mayor signed that they had received it. So I announced it very loudly.
Yes.
Yeah. And since then I have gradually taken back more of my innate powers and feeling of who I am. And basically I'd say that my life is governed by spirit more than by fear. And when you reach that point, you feel that organic universal law comes into play, and the fears you might have had disappear, because everybody is thinking, but you lose everything, what will you live from? But when you relinquish control and place yourself in the hands of spiritual laws, universal laws, you are also taken care of in magical ways. We gave up everything we had. We said, please don't send us any child allowance anymore from this thing. And we had to insist like 4 times for them to stop sending it, because they always want to contract with you. And if you receive something, they'll just suppose that you're one of their corporate employees, right? So in reality, you don't need so much to live. In Norway, we pay like 80 or 90% in taxes, indirectly.
It's also a very expensive country, right?
Yes, it is. So really, when you don't pay taxes anymore, and I won't ever again pay a dime in taxes, because the taxes goes to tearing down the earth, basically, to very, very destructive purposes, and can
But
never
it also
support.
goes to welfare if people really have a problem surviving themselves.
That's what we are told. But when you look through the numbers, the figures, you realize that actually it is an organized robbery of the grassroots taking place, and what the people are getting back is just trifles. So we live in one of the so-called richest societies in the world, and there is immense suffering among the people. And it makes me cry, because when you see how the old people are not taken care of, and how people are really treated like trash, like they have no value whatsoever. And you see in the schools how many children are diagnosed with something. One of the worst things we have in our society is the child care, because 52,000 children are under the state's care somehow. That's very much for a very small country. 52,000 children.
For psychological treatment?
Yes, or taken away from the parents. In Norway, you find posters on a lot of buildings saying, would you like to be a foster parent? Because if you want to be a foster parent, we will pay you 600,000 every year. That's a huge salary. So it's a business. And some of the most nefarious corporate forces or corporations have bought their way into the child industry, and they are registered on the stock market. Wallenberg, the Swedish guy, among others. So you will see that it's actually a trading, it's a buying and selling of our children. We are moving towards a society of informers, snitchers. The government all the time tells you to snitch on your neighbor. So if someone informs on you for something, child services can come and take your child. So we have cases where the doctor says, oh, you won't be vaccinating your child, let me call child services. Or when the parents oppose something in the schools, the principal will call child service to say, we have a problem with these parents. That's how our society is working now. We are moving towards a very brutalized, inhumane, totalitarian society that is really crap.
Really?
Yeah. And
are you talking about a New World Order philosophy?
I'm talking about the effects of the long-term implementation of the New World Order. And now we are noticing the effects much more clearly than before, how it's playing out. If you go back 20 years in time, when I was a child, I really thought that, ooh, this is the coolest country in the world. And I was traveling as a student a lot, and I came back and I thought, oh my God, I love my country. This is freedom, and we have a very equalitarian society. Everybody has the same, are entitled to the same. Now, I realize that that's only on the surface. When you go beneath the glossy surface and the pink surface, where everything shows a good facade, then you can feel that, okay, here we really have some nefarious agendas playing out. It's a shadow government that we have.
But how about you and Agenda 21 then, which is implemented locally in different communities in the world?
Because these are global agendas that are implemented in all countries. But it's done so cleverly that we hardly know what's happening. My city is part of something called Smart Cities. And Smart City is part of Agenda 21 because they never use the Agenda 21 name. They say, oh, we have smart cities, so we are obliged to do this. So what they do is they vacate the centers. So the city center is empty now, nobody is there, and they move the people to the malls, the shopping centers, set up a lot of blocks around them for people to live. So
apartment buildings, like in a ghetto?
Buildings, yeah, they are creating ghettos so that we can become efficient consumers. So we can just go from the house 20 meters to the mall, do our shopping, get back, and that's that. And we see the technology that they're implementing, calling it smart technology, ruining our health. And we also see the Codex Alimentarius.
Please explain what that is. Codex
Alimentarius. In Norway, we have an agency called the Food Safety Agency, and they are host agency for the Codex in Europe. So the purpose of Codex Alimentarius is to standardize all food. All food needs to be according to scientific standards, because if it's only from Mother Nature, that's not good enough for the human being. So part of the plan is to radiate all food to make it more healthy.
Like GMO.
Yeah, and they also are implementing the GMOs more and more. They are trying to make things that are natural. They become illegal now, like picking berries.
Is that not
that's
legal?
That's now becoming illegal.
Why?
Yes, because when you pick berries, they haven't been submitted to the standardization. So it means that the corporations are losing out on money, or that the control is slipping. So what I did, because I need to live from something, so I thought, it might be a good idea to produce something healthy. So I produced spring rolls and sold them, freedom rolls. Ooh. And then the Food Safety Agency.
Chinese style or what?
Unfortunately, it has the normal wrapping, but I'll stop using that because I've come to realize how enormously bad the wheat is for our bodies. But apart from that, I use ecological vegetable and such.
So you produce that and you can sell it?
Yeah.
People would probably be very fearful if they would, do what you've done, or try to do what you've done. What do you recommend that people should do if they feel this fear of doing this?
Well, we have many people now contacting us saying, can you please help us? Lots of people are having their houses foreclosed upon. So last week we had an action, we had something going on. We had a lady, she was going to be evicted from the house. And now we have lots of awake people. So they said, we ain't gonna let that happen, we'll go and help her. So like 20, 30 people went out there, and they stood there when the police came. Police came in with 5 people, and the lawyer, and the court clerk. And you could see, we filmed it all, and it was beautiful, because you could see that that the people, when they realize that there is a fraud going on, and they remember who they are, they become empowered, and they can't be stopped, really.
So no fear.
No fear at all. So you could see in that film, you can see how the police kind of, they feel so uncomfortable, especially the lawyer.
And they don't know what to do, and then, yeah.
In the end, they just left the building, and they said, we'll come back. But they can keep coming back, and they can throw her out once more, and we will help her move in. They can throw her out again, and in the end, all they have is the use of brute power. So the question is, are they willing to use brute power against the people in such a small country? Are they really willing to? So that's what I'm thinking. I want to see, what are they going to do? Because if I was violent and really was a threat to society, they could always find a cause for the use of violence. But I preach peace and love and not hatred. And I love them. They are me.
So what is
and
your...
I'm not angry. So they can come, they can throw me out of the house, and I'll move right back in. We'll just see what will happen. And it would be a very good idea for them if they avail of this opportunity to have people like me in the front spearheading a peaceful revolution, because we really need to end the destruction. So this is a good chance, because there will be no retaliation, no payback time. We won't extract anything from them or put them to jail. We'll take down the system peacefully, so that the people can get their lives back.
So what is your best advice or your greatest message?
Remember the power that they have, and that they are the authority. If they just realize that they have been fooled, people don't like being fooled and tricked and pushed around. So when they realize the truth of the system that we live under, that's a very good beginning. So please investigate what's going on. That's a very good beginning. And then once you see the facts for yourself, then you have a better platform. Then you can decide what to do. So people tell me, but if everybody does what you're doing, then everything will collapse and we'll see destruction and chaos. And we won't. We will eventually get our peace and respect back. Respect for our Mother Earth. A new future for our children. The thing we will begin to remember what we are, which is love and cooperation, and the willingness to help each other as brothers and sisters.
That was the interview we did in 2014 at the Open Mind Conference in Copenhagen. And now 4 years later, here in 2018, a lot has happened in your life. So the first question obviously is, did you keep your sovereignty? Have you been able to maintain your position as this so-called free, independent woman and somebody who has no ties with the government or the state whatsoever?
Yeah, I do believe so. And the reason is to explain. What I feel is that sovereignty is both a material and a spiritual thing. Spiritually, I've cleared my energy of ties to the state totally. And the next question is, does that energy help me in the world? Does it help me to get a home? Does it help me to bring food onto the table? Or will I need the state to provide for me? Because the state's function in most people's life is to be that of provider, to provide solutions for our lives. I can say that I'm sovereign, but does it help me in my life? And yes, it does. And in those 4 years, we have done a number of things. We have traveled to Brazil without passports, met with police many, many times with nothing, no papers. We have been able to manifest a terrain in Brazil, a big terrain in Brazil, and that was manifestation, piece of land, yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So we have examples of manifestation work that has been very powerful.
Without any attachment to the state.
Yeah.
Also the state of Brazil.
No, this piece of land came to us without having money because we lost everything. So what we did was, I'll give you examples as to how it works afterwards. But my point is to say that we are provided for. We have never been hungry. There has always been food, even if we've had little money. I absolutely think that as a human being, you are able to maintain yourself. You do not need the state to provide for you.
But did you have to live on goodwill in your network, friends, and who are under the state?
Yeah, no, not really. No, we didn't. And we've always had some jobs that have come to us, like translation work and works with clairvoyance. So in that sense, we have been.
You work as a spiritual teacher, spiritual reader, clairvoyant, and healer, right?
Absolutely. So I do believe that it's absolutely possible to assert sovereignty. And as I see it, the state will always try to put some claim on you or to assume things. And now I do have my passport, so rightfully they may assume some things, but there isn't any interaction other than that I travel.
So you chose to get your passport back. You chose to be part of the system a little bit in that way in order for you to travel.
Yeah, I did.
So you didn't renounce it totally, but when you went to Brazil, you traveled without the passport. What happened? How did you manage to get through airport security and go all the way in the plane?
Yeah. We went to Portugal first with no papers, and in Portugal we ordered world passport, but this is passport that is, we could do it on our own at home because it doesn't contain social security numbers, nothing. In Mikael's, it only said Mikael, no last name.
That's your partner.
Yeah, it is. And then we were thinking, what do we do to get across that ocean, the Atlantic Ocean? Because when we didn't have papers, it's not likely that someone will take us along. So we thought that let's try to find a sailboat.
You would cross the Atlantic in a sailboat.
We found a person, a captain, who took us on board as crew. So we sailed to Cape Verde in the middle of some small islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Really?
And on that journey, and then from Cape Verde we went by airplane from the military airport of Sal. And yeah.
On that island in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah. So we went to Brazil on the airplane. So without papers, we were able to enter into many harbors, and we met with the police many times, and they let us continue, and they even welcomed us.
So the military, which you have, let's say you've been going against the military, the police and the state, actually took you and flew you to some...
No, what actually happened was that we were thinking, because this has to do with the understanding that you have. So we were thinking, okay, we don't have papers, so what do we say when the police comes? Because the police always came. So we only knew that we would speak the truth, and we knew that we had to meet the police with a feeling of him being our brother, without conflict. So we said to them, I said, I'm Norwegian, and I really cannot go along with my country's policy and war crimes, and it makes me very sorry. I can't be a part of that, and I do not want to be represented by the Norwegian government, so I'm not represented by them. I'm representing myself, and this is documentation that you might use if you want to. And this was what happened all the time. 10 times we met with policemen. And the first time it was in the harbor of Lisbon in Cascais, which is one of the most protected and heavily guarded harbors in Europe, maybe the most.
Okay.
Yeah. So the chief of police of the harbor listened to us. And we were thinking, what's the worst that can happen to us? Maybe they'll put us in prison, but so be it. But actually he listened and he understood what we were saying, and we became friends. And he came into the sailboat, and he said he just wanted to hang with us and to ask us more and to see what we were making for dinner that day.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so cool. Yeah, and so many times the same. And when we traveled like that, we were always looking for synchronicity, little signs, a feeling that now is the right time to move. So when we came with that sailboat to Cape Verde, we chose to stay there. And we knew that now we are stranded on a little island, so how to move from here, because it is unlikely that another sailboat will come and pick us up when we have no papers. So maybe we'll stay here for the rest of our lives.
Was that what you thought?
Yeah, we thought that, well, from a rational point of view, there is no way that we can travel from this island. But then...
How would you survive on a lonely or deserted island?
Yeah, but so we went, we did have some money because we were working our way. So we went to a small hotel or hostel, and it was called Chave d'Ouro, the Golden Key. And then we were thinking, okay, so maybe this hotel holds a golden key to our journey to Brazil. And then besides this hotel was the air company of Cape Verde. So we were thinking, okay, let's try to fly, because that seemed absolutely unlikely, and to be able to fly, we would need a miracle. And then we went to an island called Sal, and the reason is that Sal means both salt and it means go in Spanish. So we thought, okay, that's the right island to travel from. And then for some weeks I fell ill and I had dysentery, and I actually almost lost my life. That's
really?
Not a story, yeah.
No.
I learned so much. It was a really awesome experience in the end. But then when this was over, we went to the airport and set the energy, kind of felt the energy of the airport. We came back. And when we felt the time is ready, we ordered the tickets. And we went to the airport with tickets to Brazil. No passports, only the world passport. The world passport, if you swipe it, it'll just say, no.
What is a world passport?
So it's a little book. And the idea behind it is that to be courteous, to be respectful, you should always present yourself, and it looks better if you have like something written with your name. It's not even your name, it's like in Michael's, it says Michael and picture and that's it. Mm-hmm. So we went to the airport, and then miraculously we were allowed to travel, and it was unbelievable. I could write a book about the things that happened at that airport.
But what if somebody else or many people wanted to do what you have done? Would they be able to do all of this?
With practical application of spiritual principles that will help you in your life. That's my whole point. If you go within and clean out your own garbage and crap, if you do that and have an intention, clarity within, you can do anything. You really can do anything.
By the power of your spiritual growth or beliefs?
No, by the power of your energy that we all have within, because we are a Taurus field, that's our energy. So we are creators of our reality. And that was my point of departure. I wanted to see, is it true that I can use my own energy to open the doors and decide the outcome. Is that true?
Is that the law of attraction?
The material universe has many laws, the laws of cause and effect, many laws. And as I see it, it's more about allowing inspiration to come through. And then you are being told what to do. And you have an inner knowing telling you what to do. And if you have inner conflict, if you dislike someone or you have conflict within you, then your energy field closes. So you have to be clear within yourself and truthful and humble and honest. And if you live like that, everything will open up for you the way you want to. So when you ask me, well, do you interact with the state? Well, the state is there, but I don't care about them. I care about them in the sense that they are my brothers and sisters. They can't trigger me into responding to this, responding to that any longer, because my triggers are gone. In my life, what I do is that I do the things that I feel empower me and allow me to be the best human being that I can be, because that's really what it is about. And I have no belief whatsoever in the state. I give nothing, I get nothing from them at all.
When you say you give nothing, what does that mean?
Yeah, we have a green economy that we do not really want to support.
What is green economy?
Yeah, I will never allow that my vital energy is used to support the warfare that the Norwegian state carries out. The many wars in Libya, Iraq, taking the lives of so many. So I said, I'm renouncing my citizenship. I won't pay taxes, and I still don't.
So you don't pay taxes. Yeah. How is that possible not to pay taxes? I mean, how can you say, I will not be part of it? And if you don't pay taxes, how can you be part of helping a community where a lot of people need that, let's say, like social welfare and money paid for a community? Doesn't that make people think that you've been very selfish?
When you remember who you are, you also realize that we are so powerful and we are powerful creators of our lives. And we also remember that mostly the human being wishes to help and to use our resources in fruitful ways for the community. So we are told by the state that if you go against us, you lose everything, all security, all network around you. You will not be able to go to school. You will not have hospitals. This and this will happen to you. And
what happens if you get sick and want to go to the hospital?
Yeah. So this is the enslavement trap, or the way of entrapment of our spirits. And if you go beyond that and you feel into who are we as human beings, do we have power, do we have the capacity to do something different, then my experience and my feeling is that we as human beings are so much more powerful, and we have the will and the possibility to create new systems, and it's about time that we do.
What would that end up with? A complete world in chaos?
Yeah, that's what everybody says, but as I see it, we have two choices. What is the worth of our life? Does our life have value? Do we have to go along with belief systems that we absolutely do not adhere to? And why do we have to go along with those? Or can we choose to find an individual stand that resonates with who we are and the deeper feelings that we have, deeper longings that we have? Isn't that a birthright? Anarchy in itself is not defined correctly by most people, because it simply means an archon without leader. So,
an archon.
Yeah, and even or without the archon, an archon. Do you need leadership or outer leadership in your life, or do you have internal leadership and inner guidance.
People like to be secure, have a home, have work, get their paycheck. Not everybody can create their own jobs. You know, some people can, but not everybody can do that. They want to be part of the system. They feel good about being part of the system. So, but you certainly don't. And so it's a very individual thing.
Yeah. It's very important to recognize the soul path of every human being, because it is absolutely different. And the form that your inner calling takes, what it drives you to do, differs from one person to another. So it's not the same for every person. And I believe that every person's soul calling or life journey is sacred and respectable as it is. And in my case, I definitely had the inner drive to find out, who am I? My father was a priest, so he said that God will always be protecting everybody. And even if I'm not at all religious, I felt that within myself. I felt that either the universe is loving or it is unloving. So which is it? So if I choose to adhere to the premises of the state, I lose my powers and I just give away everything that I have, and I obey just for the sake of it, not to get into trouble, because that's the basic reason many people stay within the system. I think that they are afraid of what might happen if you don't do that. So I with my life, I wanted to challenge that assumption and see, is it true that we are carried through and that we are protected if we go by our inner guidance? What happens if you let go of your lifeline, of the security net? What happens then? So that was our premise, and we have tried that out to great extent. We have experienced what kind of manifestation comes from simply being and aligning with the universe, and we have seen that we are given things, doors are opening, we are protected, always taken care of. We woke up one day and we had lost our house, we had lost everything. All we had was ourselves. So,
and you lost your house, which you called Niceland. And it was like a free space, not part of the state, little area that was yours, and you had to give that up as well. That was taken away from you, huh?
There was a personal risk there, because I lost like 800,000 kroners doing that, and I felt I had to.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason was that when you undertake this kind of journey, in the beginning, the state will very often retaliate and try to make you shut up and not talk so much and not mislead the people, and especially not spread ideas that are disruptive for the plans that they have. So they gave me a fine, which was very big, 500,000 kroners. Okay, so if I accept that fine, which is fictitious, because it was, then it means that for the rest of my life I have to just crawl and say and bow to my masters, or do I take radical action? And this was a very difficult period in my life, so I went through so many rounds with myself. Instead of choosing the easy way out, which would be to pay the fine and keep my house and live as I always had, I'd rather get to the bottom of what's going on here.
So they didn't take the house away from you, you gave it up?
Yeah, because I began reading, and then I saw and I listened to Jordan Max. I listened to everybody, and I understand very well how the financial system works now, and the role of the banks, and how the banks during centuries have enslaved us and actually own our nations. So it is this ownership of our nations that make our politicians give everything away because they have no option.
So they took the house away from you, or you gave it away?
No, I told the bank that I will not pay you any longer the mortgage until you answer to these questions. So there was a long process of asking the banks, where did you get that money from? Did it exist before I came? Was the loan created on basis upon my signature? And what was the security behind that? And then a number of questions, long process. And I knew that if I do this and take it to the end, I will lose my home. And I did. It felt like the right thing to do.
But you just said before, a little while back, that God, whatever God is, your father was a priest, whatever God is always protecting us or protecting you. But a lot of people would say, so what about people that are dying of hunger or famine or war crimes or hate or just, you know, all the terrible things that are happening in the world, and many nations are suffering. Are they protected by God?
Yeah, because these were the triggers that make people like me and many others react, because it's unbearable to see the suffering. So when I woke up, I was like, wow, how can you people consent to this, consent to all this?
But they have no other choice. They're living maybe in Africa or places where you can't go or travel. They don't have access to this kind of knowledge.
Yeah, but the condition of the suffering of the human being and our participation in it, by ways of the injustice that we impart, especially our nations, was a major wake-up call. But then beyond that level comes the question of who we really are. And as I see it, we are God inside. God lives within every cell of our body. My quest is to find the answers, or to try to look for them and see, can I find those answers? Because they really mean much to me. I would really, really like to know, why are we here? What's the character of the human experience on Earth? Do we have a mission? What's this about? I believe that we come from infinite beauty and awareness and playfulness, and then we choose to descend into a vortex of experience that provides a setup for our lives, and then we reflect, we interact, we look into mirrors with other people, and then we take that knowledge back.
Why would anybody want to choose going into such an existence where you say we are enslaved by the state and the community, do you think?
We have chosen to be born into a system or three-dimensional material world existence within these physical vessels. And it seems that one of the premises for our existence is forgetting who we are. So we can't remember. But when we remember where we come from, that we are infinite awareness, having human experience, such as David Icke says, then everything becomes easy, crystal clear, becomes easy. And then you begin feeling enormously grateful for the possibility to be part of this experience, and you fall in love with your fellow human beings on Earth. There comes a point where you can see everything from the outside, where you can clearly see the material matrix and how it plays out, and at that point you are free. I feel free, absolutely. I feel that there is nothing within me that is entangled with the matrix.
When you say that we choose what we want in life, what to become in life, that we choose the kind of life that we're supposed to have on Earth, you're speaking from a reincarnation point of view, right?
Well, I believe in reincarnation, but at the same time we know that time is not what we have been taught in school. So time doesn't exist, and experience is on timelines, is more of a permission slip. That's something you have created for yourself. As I see it, there are many levels to our experiences, and on one level we have the incarnation platform, where we can remember our previous lives that I have for myself.
Through regression?
Yeah, and once
Therapy,
through,
which is a spiritual practice.
yeah, but also through using my own clairvoyant abilities that we all have. We all have them, just as much. I can easily connect with what could have been previous lives. But there are also something beyond that, where we weren't human beings, we weren't even ascended masters, we weren't avatars, we were just potentiality, like awareness.
Awareness as a soul or consciousness, or what kind of form?
Yeah, it's more infinite joy. It's joy. It's not confined. It's without confinement to form and to time and to space.
Not on the three-dimensional level that we are on, where we can see, touch, feel, and navigate.
Within that three-dimensional field, we carry with us the remembrance of the awareness that we are, and we also carry with us a toolbox that allows us to reconnect with that field of awareness. And within our body, we can have a complete aware experience while on Earth. What is interesting to me is that when you move beyond that paradigm where you believe in the state, which for me is once you see through that thing, you can never go back, because you see it doesn't hold together at all. It's illusory, it's put together, it's like a ball of lies, manipulation, belief systems, someone trying to take power over you. And when you see through that, you can never again interact with it other than through a position of compassion. So when you said, how do you relate now to the state? I now relate to the state in a friendly way, like seeing them as my brothers and sisters in there who still have that belief system running through their minds. But there is no animosity or aggression or rebellion. It's what the state has done. It is trying to entrap us in every possible way. So there is no way you can travel between Denmark and Norway without passport any longer, without going through great pains.
So you need to show your passport in Scandinavian countries these days, which was not
the case before.
Yeah.
But for me, it has brought me peace and harmony, the things we have done, because I feel more playful about that. Like, oh, you want my passport? Here you go, brother. Funny, good joke.
So actually, when looking at this now, 4 years later, it actually cannot be done totally to renounce the state and say no to the whole system. Not if you want to have some kind of possibility to travel and be free enough to make that choice to go somewhere else than just outside of your little home or big home or whatever you have managed to acquire.
Even in those 4 years that have passed, we've been in Brazil. When we came back, we could see enormous changes. So much have changed. And our liberties and freedom is taken away by the day. So theoretically, to be able to have a home, you need to register. To be able to this, to be able to that, you need to register. And all of those things, we all know them.
Are you able to own your own land or to grow your own vegetables?
We can manifest our reality the way we want to. Now what I have is my passport, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, this is pioneering work that many of us do. It's like being on the cutting edge of something where nobody has been before, because nobody has really been there. And when I remember when I woke up and began speaking, most people cannot even begin to understand what I'm saying, because the way of thinking and the longing for freedom and the concepts we have about what freedom is so foreign to most people.
It's very difficult for people to put themselves in that place because it's not part of their reality.
No.
It's not part of the life that they've been living and how they grew up understanding the system and the benefits that I think a lot of people think they get from the system. Maybe especially in these Scandinavian countries and in Northern Europe, possibly, and some places in America. But how about work? The whole system is based on money.
I think that a lot of the work we do is done within the spiritual spheres. A frequency race is happening. I totally believe that. So through new lenses of understanding, I think that new solutions will come. And my contribution was minor, very small, very important for me in my life, very important. And it was radical in the view of many people. But my hope is that I and many others may have aided people in asking relevant questions for their lives.
So if somebody was rigid and uncompromising and would stay in that place and have their own piece of land or whatever, they could do it,
Yeah,
not being part of the system
some
or
people
what?
are doing it now in Norway.
Some people are doing it.
And they are marvelous.
Really?
So in Norway, absolutely. You have one of them, I dearly love him, he's so brave. He calls himself simply Ola Norman, and now he's in prison again.
He's in prison
Yeah, and he's
for doing it.
Yeah, and they are actually...
What was his crime? Why is he in prison?
The basis for the accusations was that he was being intimidating towards the
authorities.
Police, the authorities, yeah, or questioning them too aggressively, could be, which is not a good thing. You should do that, but always kindly. And yeah, there might be other things too, but I'm not sure. But what I know is that when you walk down that path, someone doesn't want you to succeed. And I felt that so much in my life as well. The attempts at retaliating and putting me into my place so that for once I would listen.
They did that a lot to you, didn't
Yeah,
they?
in many ways. And they do that to everybody.
You had many encounters with the police
Many
and
encounters with the
the
police,
state
yeah.
and what. How did you deal with that?
When the authorities came to take our house, they sent massive forces in, like 20 policemen to my home and 50 policemen to Oslo, following Alan Brock's case, a Danish guy who did the same thing in Norway.
And the media also covered this, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and inventing all kinds of things, never saying the true or referring the true reasons as to why we did what we did, of course, but we knew that.
You became quite famous, or maybe infamous,
Yeah.
for doing this, huh?
Yeah, I think the adequate response is to go beyond the suits that we are wearing here on Earth. There I have a policeman, he's wearing his police hat uniform, but then to recognize that he is me, I am him, and he is my brother, and find that compassionate stand within you, and then that resolves everything, and that creates miracles.
How do you think you became this, let's say, powerful in your spiritual growth and this strong, yet so vulnerable?
I think I decided that before being born, and that goes for many people. I think that we've come to Earth now to partake in an awakening that is general and that is opening up something new, a new experience for us on Earth.
From a reincarnation point of view?
Yeah, reincarnation, or being part of a sea of potentiality and then wanting to come to the Earth to have an experience in this crucial time for the Earth.
Because we are soul beings beyond our vehicle, which is this timeline, this life in this body, and then we can come back in another body?
Yeah,
Or-
and yes, absolutely. We can do whatever we want to do. If it is come into a body on Earth or come into a body somewhere else or just do something else, there are infinite possibilities to what we can do and what we can choose. That's my belief.
So when we die and our soul leaves the body, can we choose to go somewhere else or go back to, let's say, source, which people call God,
I think,
if they are into a specific type of religion?
Yeah, I think we have that choice. And I told you that I nearly lost my life in Cap Verde, and I really did. And I had an encounter with death. And I saw I felt that I really had no energy left within my body. So I felt that life is leaving my body now. I went to the beach. It was very close, 50 meters, and I could barely get there. And I sat beneath the sun thinking that I'll get some prana. And then I in my inner eye, saw the angel of death coming. And we had a conversation. And I realized that one of the major illusions of all is that we believe in death. Because death as such is only in transition. It's like being born from your mom into this life, and you're being born back into something else. That's all it is. And your thoughts about what death is programs your experience
when you die.
Post-mortem, yeah.
Really?
I think so. I can't know.
So it has a lot to do with how far you're getting spiritually in this life. And we're not talking about religion, are we?
No.
Because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of regulations. And
we need to, or we can choose to go beyond all of the mental programs and see the big flaws that lie within most of our mental programs, and then go beyond and see what is there beyond. And one thing is for certain, and it is that we will not get all the answers while we are on Earth. Mm-hmm. But we did have an experience in Brazil that was decisive for me, because before going to Brazil, I had a more earthly perspective. I was really thinking about how to escape from the state, or how to find like a niche or a place to stay where we could stay and not be interfered with. And I was kind of thinking, oh, I'm so tired of that state. Let's see if there is a place on Earth where we can stay and live in peace and grow our own foods and such. And we did find that in Brazil. We found a big piece of land, and we acquired that with some friends. And it turned out, when we got to Brazil, that this little setting in Brazil, very small setting with 20 people that we knew, became an exact replica or repetition of the state. And so we experienced, it was like a very, very small, tiny little matrix on that beach with all the same ingredients, like corruption, deceit, lies, you name it.
With the people that you were involved with and lived with there in that little community.
Yeah, Norwegians. So that made me think. I was thinking, why does this happen to me again? What's wrong? Why is this repeating? Why does all the things that I do not like about the state, why are they repeated here? So I understood there must be something else. There must be something else, because this is definitely not normal. and as a clairvoyant, my impression is that many people during the past years have had very intense experiences in their personal lives, intense human experiences, intense experiences with manipulation, all kinds of things, and very intense way. And that also happened to us. I needed to get some help from ayahuasca, and luckily I was in Brazil, so I got that help, and enormous help. And
how can ayahuasca, which is a mind-expanding drug,
it's not
help
a drug.
you?
It's used for the treatment of addiction. but it does expand your mind, yes. So it removes your inability to connect with the realms outside of the three-dimensionality. So you can connect with those realms through the help of ayahuasca.
Would you recommend that?
To everybody.
Really?
Yes,
Would you do
absolutely.
that?
Oh, your life will never be the same. Never.
But don't you think that some people cannot cope with getting into that kind of situation, being in this altered
Maybe.
state in their minds? Do you think they can cope with that? Don't you think some people don't return after such a ayahuasca trip?
Maybe, I don't know. It could be, probably.
But that was not the case for you.
No,
you
absolutely not.
You made clean table, or
Yeah.
what?
Yes.
Psychologically or
Yeah,
emotionally,
so I
or
could
what?
see all of my own things, and especially I could see the how harmful my reactivity was. The way that we are triggered emotionally by everything, living within a society where we get offended all the time. And the state invents new areas that we can become offended about, and that will trigger an emotional response. So all the times that we say, why did you do that to me? What's wrong with you? Such reactivity. And I could see how much of my energy I lent, gave away to situations where I responded emotionally. Like, why does this happen to me? Who? and I could see all of that. So I could see that all that matters is the energy that we have within our hearts, our creative energy, and really everything outside of that is a circus.
And how we respond to situations.
So the only thing real is us, the people, and organic life. It's the organic being togetherness among brothers and sisters, and that's all there is. And the rest of it is merely a circus. It's a circus. So the state is a circus, and that's all it is. So my view is that it is put there to wake us up, like a conspiracy waking us up. I'm sure about that. So if we don't respond, if we go along all the time, they do outrageous things, and we go along. Like in Norway, they take our children, they kill off half of Libya, and people still go along. How long will you go along? And the state keeps pushing until you are cornered. And then at some point, maybe you can't take it anymore, and then you wake up.
So you actually took ayahuasca when you
Yeah.
were in Latin America. What happened when you did that? What did you see? What did you experience?
I went to many ceremonies, but on 3 occasions, I was approached by a group of beings. I don't know how many they were. It's like collective group of beings, and that's definitely how I felt. Because when you take ayahuasca, you have total clarity. You aren't drugged. You are more present than you normally are. So they began talking to me telepathically.
When you say they, you talk about beings from another dimension?
Yeah.
Extraterrestrials?
Yeah.
Interdimensionals?
Yeah, absolutely. But they told me that they were a cosmic intelligence without specifying where they came from. So a cosmic intelligence came and spoke to me. And I even took notes. I took like 50 pages of notes.
You were able to do that while you were on this ayahuasca trip?
Always, you are completely focused and clear. So I took notes. I have them at home. And they told me that today is your lucky day because we have come to tell you what it all is about, what's happening now on the earth, what everything is about, and who you are. So they told me something. They said that, you have been on a shamanic initiation for the past 2 years of your life, and it all began when you almost died in Cape Verde. That's when your trials and your path of initiation began. And as a clairvoyant in my work, I have seen that this has also been the case for many people when you throw up, you go to the bathroom, you can't hold food. And this went on like for five weeks, more or less. I couldn't hold food at all. So in the end, you lose all of your powers. And it was a strange feeling of noticing life ebbing out from your body. Yeah, because you kind of know.
And then it started to heal, or that?
Then I had a meeting with this spirit of death that came to talk to me, and I could see that death is an illusion. And I saw something else. I saw that you choose when you want to die. So it is your decision. Absolutely, 100%.
In this life, you can choose?
Absolutely, when you want to die. So I just said,
I think a lot of people in this world don't know that.
No, they don't. I didn't know either. So I said, fantastic, but I want to live. And the next day I was completely fine again, completely cured.
Without medical treatment?
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah. Well, I did take some antibiotics before, but they made me worse. So I came back from the beach that day. Everything went upwards, and we went to Brazil a few days after. But then, during the encounter with spirits from other dimensions, I could feel the unbelievable love for us, for all of us, from the other dimensions. And I could clearly see what our experience is. And they said that we as human beings is one celestial being split into trillion or millions and billions of fractals having an experience, and we have been as far out from the source that we could come. Now we are going back, reuniting as one being. And when I was And I was told that your purpose, my purpose, is to administer heavenly justice, and that is simply love, unconditional love. That's my job, to impart that and to feel that and to be that in the world. That's why I'm here. And the reason why we met with so much adversity is that you must see the darkness to be able to forgive it and to integrate it, to cancel it out. And when you can see darkness and you can forgive it completely and love it completely.
And not be afraid of it?
Not be afraid of it, yeah. So you need to meet it first. So I believe that me and many, many others have that job on the earth. Not being scared and maybe doing transformational work.
So does that mean if somebody is listening to this conversation and hearing all of these things that you're saying about your life story and your experiences, and they say, oh wow, I can't believe what this lady is saying, how would you react to that today?
Maybe some years ago I would feel sorry and like, oh, and now I really don't care. And I really don't care. I only care if I feel negative feelings towards other people. Then I think that, okay, so let's find that within me and see what to do with that feeling, because it's not good thinking negatively about other people and situations.
So how important is, let's say, the spiritual world? I mean, you're using it as a reader and as a clairvoyant and as a healer. How do you feel or see that affects people in a positive way?
I do feel that it changes lives, which makes me grateful to be able to do that work, because from the lives we lead where we believe that we have to be part of like a state or a system that doesn't resonate with our hearts, because it really doesn't resonate with most people to be part of something that is so brutal, takes so many lives. Human being isn't like that. We are empathetic, we feel compassion. So to be dehumanized in such a way as most people are makes us develop protection, so we have huge shields around us. And when you work with those shields, and when people begin remembering that they are amazing, they are divine, beautiful, nothing wrong with them, they have so much guilt, so much shame. So that's when miracles also happen in their lives, because they stop blaming themselves, battering themselves. What these beings from another dimension said is that how much they love me and how much they love what I thought of as my enemies. And something very interesting, those people that we lived with in Brazil that I thought were my friends and that really, really failed us, Ayahuasca showed me that they actually are some of my closest spiritual family, and that our closest spiritual family sometimes or often take on very difficult roles in our lives to wake us up, to do the dirty work in our lives, so that we may wake up and remember not to be reactive and not to be so emotionally triggered all the time, so that we remember to control our thoughts, so that we can create in good way with our thoughts and make a better world. Because they also said that what we may call the new earth is here already, and what they told me, what you now see of disturbance is simply the pieces of the puzzle trying to find their place. What we are working with as a humanity these days is to find the solution to the problem of evil, because most of us think of life in terms of good and evil and black and white, yin and yang, and we have been living with this within this paradigm of duality for so long, and time has come to move beyond. So how can we stop thinking about our enemies as our enemies? How can we break through that hurt in our hearts and embrace the life journeys of all of those people who have come to represent evil on the earth, so that we may all wake up and so that we may all forgive and move on?
But if it's about forgiveness, how can we change it?
Within our human psyche, we often look for justice in the material and worldly sense, and we look for how can we win. So I believe we just have to forget about that, let that go. The idea that there will be justice and that the righteous will win, I think that's something that's not our business. It's from a higher perspective. Everything is fine, and we are doing a great job as human beings transforming heavy things that we have been living with for millennia.
Do you think during such an ayahuasca trip or LSD or whatever people can go on, whether it's natural or synthetic drugs, do you think that you can meet, deceivers who are guides in another spiritual realm, trying to guide you in another direction? And when you see that, you think, wow, this is clarity. This is something that is like changing my life.
I believe in free will. So I think I think that's an absolute principle, that we are given the premise of free will. So I think we can choose. Do we want to be deceived, or do we not want to? So if we are clear with ourselves about what our standpoint is, if we really choose to take our free will back and take responsibility for our experiences, our life experience, everything we create, I think we will see through that. And my experience with, because many people, they seek deception because that's something that they would like to experience. But there is a notion that's always imparted by the churches and by the state that there is something to fear. that our souls can be snatched. There can be evil entities out to get us. We are being manipulated from Orion or from Saturn, and then we feel disempowered once again. So we have to see through all these programs of disempowerment. And I believe that this is the time to move beyond all of that. And what we are finding within us is the realization that we are Taurus field, and that we can do anything we want to do. That we are God within. We have God material. We are awareness. That's what we are. So that's a choice now.
Your future, can you just say a couple of words about how you want your future to be in that direction?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you. Every day when we go for walks, I think about the world and what I would like to, and I would like for everything to be. I kind of create that new world within my mind, and hoping there will be harmony for everybody, and hoping that I can be harmonious, and if I'm not harmonious, that I can make myself come into harmony with everything and with every person on earth. I think we live within tremendously exciting times. I made a decision some years ago where it was a decision, and from that day on my life changed 100%. I said that I'm willing to let the God part in me, or the divine essence that I am, take this body and do the work, do the things that I came to do. And I wake up every day and with the same decision. Yeah, so I don't plan my future. I don't think that it's going to be in 5 years I'm going to be there. But I have dreams and things that I love. So I love to work, to cooperate with my neighbors, with the people around me. I hope that my life can be a good contribution, that I'll be able to use my energy to always be kind, always be helpful, and non-judgmental. And if I can't, then I'm very often corrected.
But most people will not choose your path and will not go down that road. So how much free will, if you will, or personal sovereignty does a regular person have if they're still part of the system and the state, so to speak? I mean, personal rights.
Yeah.
Can you claim that still being part of the whole system? Is that possible? Not just you, but everybody.
Yeah, everybody. What I would recommend everybody is that they give themselves a chance. Give your own being on earth a chance to break free from all the things that you have been thinking all of your life but simply aren't true, and be inquisitive. Try to find the answers to very important questions. That would be my recommendation to everybody, and then we might come up with different answers.
And no fear?
Not that I can feel. There might come up something where I suddenly become afraid or feel like, whoa, but no.
Wow. It's been very, very fascinating listening to your story, and it will be interesting to see where you are at a later point. And for now, I just want to say good luck, and thank you very much, Ingunn Sigurdsdatter, for doing this interview for Age of Truth TV.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.